Docking Bay 6-4, move out.
Start blowing, boys. We got some bits to take care of. 64 of them. Whoa, look at all those ports.
Hey, whoa, we'll take my ship.
Too slow, Solo. What we need is something with instant load times and games people want to actually play.
Oh yeah, like what?
Like the one with me in it.
And Banjo-Kazooie.
And Banjo-Kazooie.
There they are, blast them.
Shall We've got company.
Hey.
Oh, this is madness. We're doomed.
Shui will hold them off, kid. Get those cartridges loaded.
Blow, Luke, blow.
I'm on it.
It's a new rap record.
Like the map.
The N64 may not have had the largest library of games, and with that only a few Star Wars titles in its life, but those 4 games have ended up being some of the most prolific in the franchise's history. And I'd even go a step further to say for the most part they've ended up aging a lot better than the Star Wars titles the PS1 had to offer. To me, the Nintendo 64 and Star Wars are kinda synonymous, being a huge part of the system's identity at launch. Look at this Suicide Squad of characters on the N64 box and promos. Our boy made it.
Look, Mom, famous.
Although we didn't get a Star Wars game on launch day, after some delays, it was holiday 1996. We got the biggest post-Mario N64 game, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, starring Dash Rendar.
What up?
And this wasn't just a brand new Star Wars adventure, no. Shadows of the Empire was advertised as a major chapter in the saga, a massive multimedia project by Lucasfilm to bridge the gap between Episode 5 and 6. Sorta meant to tide fans over before the prequels. This meant a toy line, a comic book, a novel, a soundtrack companion to the novel, and of course, the home of this new essential Star Wars chapter, this little N64 cartridge. I always loved the cover art of this game too. It really did look like a sprawling epic, the way it meant to evoke the iconic Struzen posters. Now when people bring up Shadows of the Empire on N64, it often devolves into mentioning the dope-ass opening Battle of Hoth level, which is really good, and then there's the amorphous blob known as the rest of it. But I'm here to tell you once and for all that the rest of it part of the game is pretty good too. That first level is still fantastic too, and while I can't quite imagine what it must have been like as a Star Wars fan to play that day one, even all these years later, there's something so exhilarating about seeing this nearly 30-year-old N64 game pull off these iconic moments. There's been plenty of iterations of the Battle of Hoth since then in video games, the majority of which are probably more visceral and maybe more fun to play, but I don't know, there's just something kinda neat about playing this scrappy first attempt in 3D. It perfectly sets the framework of Shadows of the Empire, because this game is going to do whatever it wants, whenever. The bulk of the game is going to be these on-foot missions with Dash, and yeah, it's a little stiff. Every time I play this, I always think back to Mario 64, the flexibility and range in Mario's movements, how freeing it feels to control this little plumber. We got that on the N64's launch day, and then a few months later you have Dash who controls like an action figure.
Hey!
Once you get the hang of it though, it works well enough. You become attuned to his awkward long jump, the way his torso twists around while aiming. He's a goddamn beefy brick of polygons hurtling through these little cute action set pieces like the Rebellion's best running back. With nothing but a blaster and beefy 64-bit biceps, you're shooting these soup can looking stormtroopers, wampas, AT-STs. You also get a first-person angle, which usually works best a lot for the combat, and also the cinematic angle, so you can be Irvin Kershner with a tri-dongle controller. That's right, we're making a Star War. What really makes Shadows of the Empire fun is the amount of variety it manages to pack in here. They really wanted to cover their bases and make it feel like this expansive adventure. You got this dope turret level where you're shooting down TIE fighters through an asteroid belt. You got this jetpack one that you'd think for such an early 3D title would be a nightmare, but no, it's actually a ton of fun leaping over canyons and taking down enemies from the sky. One level, you're hopping from train to train on a junkyard planet before having this scary-ass boss battle with IG-88. Yeah, there's not much to the combat here besides spray and pray for dear life, but you kind of just attune to the clunkiness. Thankfully, the auto-aim is aggressive enough that you're not having to wrestle the controls. I will say though, this boss battle with Boba Fett, because of course he needs to show up, it's a total nightmare until you figure out how to cheese him. And I still dread this part every time I replay this. It's like they felt like they had to overcompensate for how easy he went out in the movies. One of the more infamous levels is the swoop bike one, where you're racing through Mos Eisley against a bunch of bounty hunters trying to get to Luke Skywalker before you do. Like, what the fuck are they gonna do to Luke Skywalker? I'll help, I'll do what I can. This level handles awkward, it's janky as hell. I know how this looks, but even then, it's still pretty fun ping-ponging around, bashing these bounty hunters into a fiery death or soaring over Sarlacc pits. What can I say, it just appeals to me on this monkey brain level. Honestly, it's after Shadows of the Empire drops that kind of variety that the game takes a huge dip in quality in its second half, which pretty much strictly becomes these long, bland on-foot levels that just get so repetitive. The sewer level, ew, is such a butt-ugly mess with this dizzying level design. I never want to play this one ever again. It's actual polygonal puke. With the cherry on top being this tedious boss battle against that creature in the trash compactor. There's a lot to Shadows of the Empire that hasn't aged well, like even within its own console generation that became pretty apparent fairly quick. There's definitely plenty of Star Wars games that offer a smoother experience, but I think it's still a game worth revisiting, if not for the incredible amount of variety you get from such an early 3D action game. It's actually kind of miraculous the degree to which it wasn't a disaster given how many different gameplay types it throws at you. Sure, presentation-wise, the N64 may have been limited to telling its story with static images and text boxes and dialogue, something the PC version would later remedy with these Donkey Kong Country looking ass CG cutscenes. But it is really admirable just how ambitious this game is in terms of giving you what feels like this jam-packed adventure. 2 years later, we got Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Okay, maybe developing the third-person shooter with tons of different gameplay types was a little ambitious, but since everybody loved the Battle of Hoth level, how about an entire Star Wars game from the seat of the cockpit? I'm talking X-Wings, Y-Wings, A-Wings, Buick convertible. Rogue Squadron is just one of those games I love so much. It really is difficult for me to properly encapsulate all those little details that I think make this easily one of the N64's best. The developers, Factor 5, really did work their magic. They laced this game with some sort of crack. Even down to like the UI, the second you pop in this cartridge and boot up the game, it feels like you're joining the rebellion and enlisting in the war effort against the Empire. The booming menu music, which I gotta say, it's pretty bold to compose your own new theme music for a series that's so prolific in terms of its soundtrack. I love the mission select being the briefing room, the vehicle select being the hangar bay that teases you by having the camera sweep past the Millennium Falcon. Every vehicle controls just so perfectly and true to how you think they would. I don't think any Star Wars game since really has come close to Factor 5's rendition of the X-Wing. It's the perfect blend of being bulky yet still agile. Closing your S-foils to speed to your objectives in time, the dogfights you get into here with the TIE fighters feel so satisfying. Every time you line up your shot and see these TIE bombers spiral out of control, it just does something for me. You have these alternate rates of fire where instead of a bunch of rapid lasers, you can go for a more powerful, precise shot to better your accuracy. And landing these shots on these TIEs, again, crack. The way there's a tiny bit of a delay between your shots landing and the turrets finally exploding, crack. See, this may look like a sluggish old Star Wars game, but even like 15 frames per second, this bucket of bolts makes you feel like you're pulling off the coolest shit. The way you can just wreak havoc on the Empire, raining hell on these little stormtrooper sprites. And taking down AT-ATs with your tow cable is still so uniquely satisfying here.
Activate harpoon. One more pass. Cable out. Let her go.
Shadows of the Empire was all about bridging Empire and Return of the Jedi. This one gives us a nice little story about the years between Episode 4 and 5, where you mostly play as Luke leading Rogue Squadron. And there's surprisingly a cohesive story here, and I don't know, it just feels so true to what I envisioned happening in that gap of time. Just the rebellion giving the Empire hell any way they can, liberating different planets, blowing up Imperial factories. You have so many standout missions here, like going to Corellia and helping Han Solo save his home planet.
Han, Chewie, well, what are you doing here?
How you doing, kid? Thought I might give you a hand.
On a technical level, this really is one of those N64 games that ventures into the miraculous territory. With just how detailed everything looks, the full voice acting, the sound effects, and the cinematic presentation. This is actually one of the first N64 games to make use of that sweet, sweet expansion pack. R2! They hit the expansion pack! See what you can do! The droid did it! Great job, R2.
He did it! Wonderful!
With the expansion pack, it really is night and day. It looks amazing on a CRT. I just can't ever go back to playing without it. It just doesn't end with this game and the amount of secrets you can find. One of the coolest and craziest things about Rogue Squadron is its infamous secret unlockable, the Naboo Starfighter. Now, Rogue Squadron released in November 1998, 6 months before The Phantom Menace's premiere, where the cheat code was kept secret by Factor 5 until Episode 1's release. That's so nuts. That's like something a sneaky little wizard does. That's just genius. Another beautiful thing about Rogue Squadron that I am obsessed with is the behind-the-scenes content. It's not much, but it's something you wouldn't expect when every single byte of cartridge space is of the essence. Factor 5 took care to include things like this cute little staff photo. Look at this. You have these character bios, and you know, for Wedge and Luke and others, obviously they just pull photos from the films, but then you have entirely new characters like Case and Moore.
Ha! Like shooting Y-wings, do you? Here's a little message from Gold Squadron.
This is Lieutenant Jason Moore of the Imperial 128th to unidentified Y-wing. Are you quite done? My vehicle has been disabled for a good 2 minutes now.
For her, they just have what's clearly some lady wearing a prop helmet. That's so adorable, I can't get over this. And it's like, who is this lady? Is she like some Factor 5 or LucasArts employee? Does she remember that she's immortalized in this N64 cartridge?
Greetings, Commander Skywalker. So you're the young man who destroyed the Death Star. Much serious. Do you wish to surrender now, or...
There's just stuff about this game I connect with on a spiritual level. So much of its dialogue is just forever etched into my brain like, thanks, Rogue Group, I'm clear! It's like I have to actually contain myself a bit because I do want to later take a look at the entire trilogy of Rogue Squadron games, but like, come on. I just gotta say it, as if this game wasn't insane enough, isn't it just nuts to think there's a Star Wars N64 game that features a level that takes place years after Return of the Jedi? Like, what in the world? That's so... No, I'm so in love with you. Next up, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Now, the first video games I ever played were Jet Force Gemini and this game. I have memories of being a small little trash can, being by myself and booting up this game and feeling like a goddamn techno wizard, flipping the on switch and getting the N64 to turn on.
It's working! It's working!
And then being immersed while speeding at like 700 miles per hour through these strange alien worlds, and just like the scene from the movie, the first 2 laps of each race here have no music. You are just meant to soak in the different sounds. It's complete Outer Rim ASMR. The roaring of the engines, your pod racer soaring in the air before crashing down. And getting called slurs in every intergalactic language. There was like this surreal eeriness to the atmosphere of all these different courses. They felt so vast and remote and alien. In a way, they felt real, and for a game that's like 64 muddy bits, I think that's an incredible achievement. Oh, and also, I hadn't even seen Phantom Menace yet. I knew Star Wars simply as A New Hope. So for this game to also carry the Star Wars name, it like completely warped my idea of what the series even was. And like when I did finally see Phantom Menace not too long after, it only gave me a stronger connection to every little element that popped up from the game. Like, that's the Gazgano, that's him, that's my fucking boy! Let's go, yeah! Yeah! That's right, oops, it's all glop shittos. That's such a pimp move. It'd be easy to make a Star Wars game that's nothing but the most iconic characters, maybe even a few of the on-screen pod racers here, but no. You get, like, Anakin, and then you get all these mutated little freaks. Absolute titans like Bumpy Roos, Alder Beto, and Elon Musk. I remember playing this game with friends and them just being so confused by the roster here. Again, Gazgano was my man. I couldn't read that shit, so to me, he was just Mr. Octopus. You know, most racing games traditionally would include a sexy babe somewhere on the cover, and Episode 1 Racer continues that trend by slapping Watto on the front with his entire gut out. Oh, yeah.
You'll not find a better deal anywhere, I think, huh?
It's just so unapologetically bizarre and true to the vision of this being this deadly alien circuit. The handling and the speed of the pod racer just feels perfect. The way it controls, kind of like a chariot, but if the horses were like going at ludicrous speed. The drifting is entirely unique with the way the actual pod of the pod racer drags behind you when you're making these tight turns. Another really cool inclusion is having to monitor the health of your pod racer. By holding the analog stick forward, you can tap into your boost and push your engines to the absolute limit at the expense of making your pod racer overheat. Do it too often and your engines can actually catch on fire or blow up. That's where you can initiate a repair sequence mid-race at the expense of losing speed. It's a really fun mechanic where you have to strategize and do some risk assessment, all while going at these insane top speeds.
Come on, come on, come on, work! It's working! It's working!
The first Tatooine level is just perfect, the way you burst through these rocks and while the glare from the twin suns hits you and you hear that angelic...
It's a new lap record!
It really left its mark on my Gerber brain absorbing these moments, and I think why I loved it so much was the first circuit of races you do is extremely easy. Like little baby boy Junko did it, and I just felt so accomplished. Like you barely even see the other racers ever here. It's meant less to be a challenge and more so just becoming acquainted with most of the mechanics before you enter the really tough races. So many of these different planets have just left a huge impression on me. Again, just how mesmerizing and alien they felt. The weird ghastly green haze on Malastare, that one planet that Qui-Gon name drops.
They're pod racing on Malastare. Very fast, very dangerous.
I'm the only human who can do it.
The bustling background scenery and ships flying overhead. The one on the asteroid where you're speeding through these different gravity wells and dodging chunks of rock. It's so creative. My favorite though would always be the snow levels with that intro with the throat singing. It was always just so foreboding and strange to me, and pulling off these huge leaps and sliding on the ice, the physics to it all, this game just felt so real. I never knew how deep the customization of this game went. Like, after you unlock a new racer, you get this little cutscene with the pit droids bringing it into the garage, and Kid Me thought that was the end of it. Like, oh, cool, a new Glup Shido. But with each race, you win something called Trug Nuts.
I need something more real. I need 300 truck nuts.
Which you use to buy all these sort of parts and upgrades to your racer. And of course, back in the day, I never realized just what you were supposed to do with this. It's actually kind of insane the degree to which each pod racer already plays with such a distinct sense of weight and handling. All these stats can be finely tuned with whatever scrap Watto has lying around.
They come here, they look around, they no buy. Why nobody buy?
With the tournaments only getting faster, more intense, you need to buy more and more upgrades to keep up, and any small change can have these drastic noticeable effects. Like, you really gotta lock in and squeeze all the juice out of every midi-chlorian you can for these later races. It becomes almost too much for the N64 to handle. The frame rate starts getting real choppy, and these races get brutal. But it doesn't matter because my connection to this game will always go far beyond what's good or what's bad about it. It always occupied a strange little spot in my brain adorned with Trug Nuts and pit droids and sexy Watto. All the different mesmerizing locales, the lighting and color palettes, and the attention to detail and the sound design just still blows me away. One of the last tracks in the game is the Bunta Eve, now way more authentic to the scenes from the movie. Even got the Tusken Raiders firing at you, that's so neat. But let's not ignore the absolute funniest thing about this game. The last character you unlock is my man Benny Q. You may remember him from Phantom Menace for being the character that spun out right at the start. Here, he is hands down S tier, the best racer in the entire game. Implying if he didn't malfunction the day at the Bunta Eve, Annie would be a slave boy and it'd be Benny Q holding Natalie Portman and dreaming about the lake on Naboo.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this game and go home.
Star Wars Episode 1 Battle for Naboo. There's something about the existence of this game that never ceases to baffle me. I don't know what it is. There's like this surrealness to seeing an N64 game heavily feature so many prequel elements. Like, I guess Pod Racer pulling from a single scene in Phantom Menace and then building so much of its own lore kind of gives it more of its own identity, ironically enough. But for Battle for Naboo, seeing the Theed Palace, battle droids, droidicas, AATs, and Vulture droids, back when they were still just called droid starfighters, all on the N64 still always takes me aback. And it's weird because the PS1 Star Wars games don't seem to have that effect on me. Maybe it's the fact this released so late in the N64's life. It gives Battle for Naboo this sort of aura that it almost shouldn't exist. And there's just something about the N64's graphics and that roughness around the edges that really mirrors the original trilogy's aesthetics so well. But seeing the prequel era content here almost feels like you're looking at some insane fan mod. If you couldn't already tell, this was Factor 5's spiritual follow-up to Rogue Squadron, utilizing the same engine and largely the same gameplay structure, even have the cover art mirroring each other in this cute little way. This was way back when there was this idea that maybe the Naboo starfighter could be the next X-Wing, you know, the prequel trilogy's iconic starfighter, which didn't happen. But there's something so perfect about the contrast here, the way the X-Wing looks worn and scrappy compared to how clean and regal the Naboo starfighter looks. If Rogue Squadron was a massive technical achievement for the N64, I don't even know what you call this. Battle for Naboo very well might be the most impressive N64 game. It's neck and neck with Conquer for me. On top of all the voice acting and the music, you have these massive Windows XP Green Hill wallpaper levels with this really impressive draw distance. Looking back on all those early fog-heavy N64 games like Turok, you'd never expect to see something like this. These levels are huge, and there's a lot more ships on screen, including these gigantic freighters. The thing about Rogue Squadron is, for a game about spaceship combat, you don't actually ever play in open space. Every level takes place either on the surface of a planet or moon. Even the Death Star bonus level sticks to just the trench. Battle for Naboo, though, finally introduces space combat, with you taking down Trade Federation ships. Not gonna lie, it's a little difficult to get your bearings here. There's very few visual markers within the level to kind of help you out, but still, it's pretty nuts that they were able to pull this off. I think what really makes Battle for Naboo special, though, is it fleshes out and characterizes Naboo and the Trade Federation's invasion way better than the actual movie does. You see Theed under attack, you witness Naboo citizens running for their lives as their homes get destroyed. You visit entirely different biomes of the planet where the Trade Federation has extended their reach. You're liberating prison camps. It makes it feel like an actual planetary invasion with real immediate consequences. Rather than, I don't know, they sort of just walk in. Gameplay-wise, another neat addition is you now have ground-level vehicles. I was a bit hesitant about these at first, like I just wanted to soar the skies and get into dogfights, but these actually grew on me. Getting to take down droidicas and tanks and picking off vulture droids flying above is really smooth, and what's really cool is you can usually find these hangars to switch out your ride for a starfighter in the middle of the level. It makes these big stages feel even more dynamic and vast, getting to experience them from both the ground and air. The later missions are a real blast too, with how you switch between these styles while the invasion really starts to ramp up. Like, I love the level where you're just speeding through a prison camp, blowing up all the Trade Federation shit to free your boys. Be free, my fellow Nabooyas! And gameplay-wise, controlling the actual Naboo starfighter feels so slick and nimble. It's actually hard for me to go back and pilot the one in Rogue Squadron because it controls so much better here. And that's thanks to one big change, and that's the fact that you can really steer and pivot your ship way faster now that you can use the N64 shoulder buttons to make these really sharp turns. In Rogue Squadron, if an enemy hurled past you, the quickest way to get to them would be to brake and then slowly turn to maneuver behind them, but with the way the enemy AI worked, it'd sometimes lead to these endless dogfights. Here though, the new sharp turn mechanic makes it so easy to speed right to where you need to be. Sure, it might make things a little easier, but it really keeps everything fast-paced, like you're flying a royal state-of-the-art ship that's meant to protect Her Majesty Natalis Portmus. And yes, you can still try spinning, and you know what? It's a pretty good trick.
This is Bravo Leader. Everyone head toward that droid control ship.
Oh, and yes, that last level does let you take on that Trade Federation donut, just like the movie. Again, that sense of scale here is just so impressive for an N64 game. I think the maker we got this one just before the N64 kicked the bucket. And you know, that's probably a large reason as to why Battle for Naboo never really quite got the notoriety or acclaim that Rogue Squadron did. By the time it dropped, the PlayStation 2 was already out, everyone had their sights set on the next gen, and I do think that prequel aesthetic did serve as kind of a deal breaker. And it makes sense, like plenty of Star Wars fans were already experiencing their post-Phantom Menace depression, and given that so many were disappointed by Episode 1 and its strange new style, a game where you fight the forces of Newt Gunray just isn't gonna drum up anywhere near the same allure as a Star Wars game where you have X-Wings and TIE Fighters on the cover. In Rogue Squadron, when Han Solo and Chewbacca show up in the Millennium Falcon, it was a nice fan service moment of a beloved character. Battle for Naboo's equivalent of that is, Captain Panaka.
This is Captain Panaka of the Royal Security Forces on the RSS emergency frequency.
Oh yeah, woo! Captain Panaka, woo! Okay, another insane thing about Battle for Naboo is it comes with an audio commentary track for every level.
Hello, this is Brett Toasty. I'm the project leader for Battle for Naboo. Today, we're just going to talk about different elements in the game.
This is KMDO, Naboo Public Radio.
Singing for it, and all singing.
It's not easy being green, being the color of the grass.
Genuinely, how did they pull this off? How did they get this all on one cartridge? You got some fun bonus levels here, too. One sees you on Coruscant chasing after Darth Maul, which is pretty surreal to see, given that this is one of the only non-Naboo missions. But then you have the final bonus mission, which sees you as Maul and his Sith infiltrator, just raining terror on the Naboo.
We're all gonna die!
Controlling his ship feels so good.
No!
Like, this is probably one of the most fun missions in the game, and yes, you can kill a bunch of families of Gungans. Well, that's the last of them. I think we've had enough excitement for one day. For once, I agree with you.
More trouble. You're not going anywhere, Solo.
Boba Fett. I know that laugh.
YungJunko.